It's time for the Tech Talk Show with me, Kazeem. And today's episode is a special one. This is because I have a very well-known guest on the show with me today. Hi, Stephen. Welcome to Lagos, Nigeria, and welcome to the Tech Talk Show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to get a chance to talk to folks there today. I have never been to Nigeria. It is on my list of places to go, and I'm excited to get a chance to connect with folks today. So thanks for inviting me.
Okay, thank you very much. If people have been in the Microsoft space for any period of time, so my guess is that people will know Stephen Rose. But just for those people wondering who you are now, let's start with having you introduce yourself, Stephen.
Sure. My name is Stephen Rose. I have been at Microsoft for over 14 years. Before that, I spent 15 years as an IT pro consultant, working for some other folks and running my own company. Since I started at Microsoft, I led IT pro readiness for Windows 7 launch. I went on for Windows 8. I launched our Surface line and Surface products for IT pros. I worked on OneDrive, and then Microsoft 365, and now I'm really excited to be a part of Teams. I also host a show called Inside Microsoft Teams, where I interview a variety of guests from a ton of companies, places like the Lego Corporation and Polaris and companies like that. And I love my job. I get to work with IT pros. I get to talk about Teams. I get to meet with guys like you and folks like you. So I have an awesome job. I'm very, very lucky.
You can say that again, Steven. Okay, so we're going to be talking recap of Microsoft Teams announcements from the recently concluded Ignite. So we saw that over 90 new updates was announced. But I know you also have background in areas outside of Teams now.
Oh, yeah.
So which one of these announcements caught your attention in general outside of Teams? Let's start with that one.
I think in general, I think the whole idea of people first, that all of the announcements we did across Windows and Azure and Office and Teams and all of these are all about empowering individuals and bringing experiences together where you're at. One of the cool things that we announced is through AI. Let's say you are chatting with someone and you mention a PowerPoint, it'll automatically create a link to it. So if I say, hey, Kazeem, did you get a chance to check this PowerPoint out about Azure? It'll actually attach it right there in the sentence. So I don't have to go through all these extra steps. Anticipating what you may want to do and how you want to communicate is really cool. And then I think the other thing that we announced is Loop. Loop is something that we announced about a year ago with active elements. And the idea is I can send you an email, and if I include some, let's say, sales figures, every time you open that email, those sales figures will automatically update, or the content will automatically update in your Word, PowerPoint, etc. So you don't have to keep opening to check new versions. I can put that dynamic content wherever you want to read it, from emails to Word to PowerPoint to inside of a Teams chat. It doesn't make a difference. So I think between Loop and some of the new AI features, we're really trying to make it simple for people to communicate in the way that most makes sense to them.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's get to Teams now. So what would you say are your top three announcements for Microsoft Teams?
Top three announcements for Microsoft Teams. I think Mesh is one of the more interesting ones. And what Mesh is it's bringing a virtual reality aspect without the need for glasses to Teams. And where this is really, I think, useful is you don't have to have a physical conference. You can now do a virtual conference, and you can walk up to somebody's booth and talk with them and ask them questions and engage in a way that you couldn't without having to be somewhere physically. I think it also opens up a lot of opportunities for people who are a little more shy, who don't want to get on camera or things like that, to be able to engage in a new way. So I think Mesh can create new ways for us to learn in schools, to communicate across businesses, and to engage with others on a level playing field or level platform. And I think that's very exciting. I think the other big aspect is some of the new features that we're bringing across education and IT that are going to help better connect people and help them to share information more easily. And then today, we just announced brand new Surface laptops for education, starting at about $300, 350 US dollars for a Microsoft Surface device that's geared towards education, made with recyclable plastic, and then Teams obviously is a part of that. But I think bringing all those aspects together is opening up a lot of opportunities for everybody across all income stratas and across all countries. So I'm very excited about that.
Okay, thank you very much. So usually I don't like to assume on the show because we have some students listening in, and some of them might not quite be familiar with some of the terminologies now.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Microsoft Mesh for Teams. So that also is an announcement that really caught my attention. But can you just help throw a little bit more light on this now? How does this really work? And did I hear you say that we don't need a special mixed reality device like an HoloLens to work with this feature?
No, we came out with something called Microsoft Space or SharePoint Spaces a few years ago, and this sort of builds upon Spaces. The idea is I'm looking at you as an icon, basically. Think of it like if you've ever played on the Wii, you have your little Wii icon, and it's like that. So everybody gets their own. What's great is I see all the icons. I get to say, let's go over here and let's chat. You see the icons yourself. So what's great is your view becomes this view of other three-dimensional beings, but yet you're there yourself. Now, I don't think this is one of those things that's going to replace calls or team meetings, but I think for conferences or in school and learning, I think that opens up a lot of opportunities. And then if you want to add HoloLens or Oculus or one of those, then you can really make it fully immersive. But you don't have to have that to get that concept. And I think with COVID and a variety of other geopolitical aspects that make it difficult for people to physically connect, it becomes a great way to sort of meet up and be a little bit more personal and to put that person aspect first. So I'm excited to see where Mesh goes and where it will be 3 or 4 years from now and how people will build upon that and evolve on that.
Okay. So you also briefly touched on Microsoft Loop as one of the announcements. So I'll also like you to help touch on that a little bit more. You know, we've come to know Teams as that go-to place for collaboration.
Yes.
But now that we're talking we're talking Loop. So how does Loop, how is it any different from Microsoft Teams? Is it also a collaboration?
Oh, absolutely.
Tool?
No, it plugs into it. So let's say you did a spreadsheet, and on the spreadsheet were the monthly figures. You can now go to Excel, copy those cells and paste them into a conversation in Teams. And when you update that spreadsheet, it will immediately update that conversation in Teams. Or if you sent it as an email, that email will update next time you open, or that PowerPoint or that spreadsheet. Let's say we're in the middle of a meeting and we're all taking notes. We can all take one set of notes and the notes will automatically upgrade with everything we did. And everywhere we paste those notes, it'll always be up to date. So the idea is rather than having to deal with whole PowerPoints or Excel spreadsheets or Word where only a portion of the information is important to a lot of people, but it changes, we can paste that like a little module into any communication form that makes sense, whether it's OneNote, whether it's as a Loop workspace or inside of a Teams chat, and it will always refresh the most current information from the original piece. So we're not sharing out a whole spreadsheet, we're just sharing out that little piece and it goes into chat and it's always up to date. It's pretty cool if you think about it, that you're never going to have to say, oh, is this the latest version? Or can you send me the latest version? Or is this up to date? You always have the most up-to-date version. It's like somebody knowing what you want to have for breakfast and already having it out on the table for you before you even have to ask for it in the morning, which is awesome.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much for that clarity. Now, I'd like us to touch on Teams generally now,
Yeah.
because I mentioned to you earlier that students and lecturers are probably going to be listening to this and consuming this at a later time also. So I feel it would be fair to bring everybody up to speed about some of the capabilities of Microsoft Teams in general. So, when an average person hear about Teams, what comes to mind is, an alternative product to Zoom or Slack, maybe. So I want you to tell us what makes Teams any different from Zoom or Slack,
Yeah.
for example.
That is a great question. I'm glad you asked it. Zoom is a great tool for video chat, like Skype or Skype for Business, but that's all it does. The problem with Zoom is it's great for meetings, but all the content and all the collaboration and all the working together isn't there. Here's a really good scenario. Let's say you get hired at a brand new job, and the person who hired you says, "Okay, time for you to get up to speed." All the people that you work with are going to start forwarding you email messages and sending you to file shares and sending you Zoom recordings and all of this. And having to go through all that is going to be really, really difficult for you to find all that information. What's great is teams. When I create a team, it can be related to a project or a group of people, but everything is going to be there. Every chat that we had, every meeting is recorded and transcribed and available in multiple languages. All the documents that we shared, project plans, to dos, information. All I need to do is to drop you into that team, and everything that is important to that group or that project is right there in one place. The whole history of the project from beginning to end, or that group and what they do, HR, marketing, sales. So rather than having to go through email and, for your basic communication, Slack for your project communication, and Zoom, and if you think about how much time you're going to spend going back and forth between those, it's huge. I used to teach basic computer classes, and I'm old. Back in the day when most people, when they would go to cut, copy, and paste, would go up to the top toolbar and go to edit, copy, and then they'd click and go edit, paste. And I used to tell people, if you just learn Control C for copy and Control V for paste, the average person uses that about 30 times a day. At the end of the year, you are going to get 2 more weeks of work done by just using shortcut keys. You think about how many times you're clicking between Slack and Zoom and email or Gmail, and you put that together, that's hours and hours of work. Plus, every time you switch, you have to think. Email, we really see as a way where you communicate company wide, but everything about that project and what you're doing stays inside of Teams. So what's great is all of your chats, all of your calls, all of your documents, all of the information that's important is all in one place, and you're working within that place and not leaving that space. And because of that, for education, for companies, for retail, it's becoming preferred, and that's why we have so many more users than Slack and Zoom, is because of all of that switching and only having some of that functionality and not having everything in one place. And that's really the beauty of Teams, and how we're continually trying to improve to bring the information that's important to you into Teams, so you don't have to start leaving that and switching back and forth. And that's probably the best explanation I can think of.
Yes, that's a very great one. So we can talk about Teams, right, and not have a way to squeeze in Power Platform in there,
Oh, yeah.
somehow. So let's talk about that for a little bit. Taking a look at some of the statistics, learning that we now have above 97% I see of Fortune 500 companies now using our Power Platform.
Yeah.
We have that is the amount of growth of Power Apps is also being getting double, like year in, year out. So is the growth as a result of integrating Power Platform with Teams? Or, what do you say to this? What do you see as the effect that Microsoft Teams is having on Power Platform?
Yeah. Well, when Power Apps first came out, they were part of SharePoint and OneDrive, and people saw a great way to automate it. And with Power platform, we saw a lot of citizen developers. I think one of my favorite stories was a guy was working for a tire company in North America and South America and said, I can't get this information very easily. And he wrote a Power App that basically went to the SQL database where he could look up any tire and see how many and where they were at. And he did it himself. And the ability to be able to empower people is huge. Once we added that to Teams, now you have the opportunity to automate and to use intelligence. And I think the three best examples of the way that people are doing that is number one for approvals. Hi, I need this document, invoice, proposal, whatever. You can pick a variety of people that goes to where they can comment and do an approval and have that whole process automated. I've seen companies who say if you want to create a new team, you have to go to a Power App and you type in the name of the team and you pick what your team is going to be about. And it will say, there's already a team that does this. You don't need to create a new team. And they go, wow. I had one company say that 70% of the new teams that were being created dropped, that they got that down by 70% because people were building teams that did almost the same thing. And I think the third is it allows anybody, and I'm not a coder. I do not know how to code, but I built a basic Power App. I built a SharePoint list that listed all of the different alcohols I had in the house and all the mixers. And I built a little mobile app where I could put it together and it could tell me what I could make. I did this in about 4 hours, and I don't know how to develop. So if I can do that, you could all do something very practical with it. But it's so powerful and so simple that people are finding really unique ways to automate business and business processes without having to be a developer, without knowing .NET, and without having to have a big education to do that. And when we can empower people, that creates a lot of excitement because the person who's building that probably knows a lot more about their job and the problems within it than I as their boss.
Yeah, that's very true. Given that I'm doing this or I'm going to be sharing this with people in the higher institution now, in the university campus, on the university radio station. So I would like you to share some practical use cases of Microsoft Teams in education. So do you think you can recommend that the university adopt Microsoft Teams as their learning platform?
Absolutely, and here's why. In-person learning is great, but we're finding that schools that can do hybrid, that there's a lot of advantages, both to the students in the classroom and outside. I did a show with the Susquehanna School District, which is a very difficult word to say and to spell, but it's in a state called Pennsylvania here in the United States. And when COVID hit and students had to learn from home, they wanted to design a system that would work well for the students when they came back to the classroom as well as home. They set up 3 cameras, one that was just for the whiteboard, and Teams supports what we call Magic Whiteboard. You can actually write on the blackboard and it shows through you. You turn transparent and they can see everything you're writing in real time. Number 2, for the science classes, they added another camera that could be a close-up. So if you wanted to show this cool little widget, you would turn on your second camera and the little squeaky octopus guy, but you could see it. And in another picture is the instructor. And for diagrams and for, when they were doing biology, it became really great. And for the students in the classroom, they were able to get a better look than they ever would have while they were there. Now, I have a daughter who has dyslexia and also has an issue with the same thing with numbers. And she has a bit of a hearing disability. When things are said, sometimes it takes her some time to flip it around in her brain. To be able to turn on real-time transcription, to see everything that the teacher is saying at the bottom, allows a variety of students that have unseen issues, that may have a disability or a problem understanding or can read better or are learning to read better, to be able to see everything that person is doing. And when that class is done, I can go into that recording and type in any word and it will take me exactly to those points in the lecture where that was said. The power to be able to bring that to education, to treat a student in the classroom and one who's remote at the same level, to be able to give every student that front row seat, to be able to have real-time translation, real-time transcription for those students where whatever language is being spoken, perhaps it's a secondary language or they have a learning disability that makes it difficult. It allows the student to have the best educational experience and to have an equal platform as everybody else in the room. And I think that's so important. And the final thing is, and I love this, is I had a gentleman at Polaris saying one of the things he didn't like about in-person meetings was you can't talk. You're in a meeting, you can't talk. It's kind of rude. But in a Teams meeting, even if they were all in the same room, people could start to talk with each other. And he felt, this is great. People are adding comments and ideas, and we should meet on this and doing things in a virtual environment that you cannot do in a physical environment. So when students are interacting with each other, when they're talking to each other, when they're going back and forth, things can happen that cannot happen in a regular classroom where all students have to be silent and look at the teacher. And I think the final one is, as I look at the new generation, like my daughter and kids younger, they don't see a difference between this and a laptop. This is just a way to get to your stuff in the cloud. I've seen my daughter chatting with a friend, uploading files to SharePoint and working in OneNote faster with her fingers than I can do on a laptop. And she's doing it from the back of a car while listening to music and drinking a soda. Because that's how kids today work, and that's how they want. They want to be able to chat. They want to have their information with them and all in one place. And the fact that we bring that together means you're working with students the way that students are going to need to work and want to work in the real world. And that's what we want. That's what's so important if you want to retain great talent. Yeah. I know it's a long answer to a short question, but there's a lot of facets to it that I think are really important.
Yes, that's very big part. It's really enabling people to do a lot more in the education space. But what I would say, or what I want to ask is, what is Microsoft doing to ensure that, they're pushing more of this, letting people know about some of these capabilities, especially in the education space? Yeah. Because a lot of people in the education here in Nigeria, I'll tell you, just hear Teams and they think, oh, meetings and then call. That's all. Yes.
We're doing, we had a whole education event today where we talked about tons of schools. I really think that, I'm hoping that the IT administrators at those schools go to our free conferences. They go to we have tons of webinars that are specifically geared towards education. We put out case studies from around the world of educational institutes. And hopefully someone like you will reach one of them and say, hey, you should check out all this cool free stuff that Microsoft is doing in Africa and doing around the world for education, and take a look. And what's great is so many of these companies are willing to say, hey, we'll come in and we'll set this up for you. Many schools already have dollars and access to a lot of this content and a lot of this hardware for free because you are education. So what's great is we can put that together and create a single solution for you that will beat anything that you're using and will be, really help the students to grow and use the tools that they're going to use when they get out of school. And that's what's important, that you are using the same stuff that when you go for that job or when you go to college, you're going, oh, I've been using this for years. I know how to do it. I don't have to learn something new. And that's really important too.
Okay. And what would be your tips that you would like to share now that can make the adoption process, easy for universities looking to adopt Teams for education?
I think the most important thing is it has to start at the top, which means the administrators, the heads of the schools and the teachers have to use it, and they have to get on camera, because you're never going to convince a kid if you're not using it yourself. And we have tons of free training. I'm always happy if you reach out to me on Twitter. If you want me to do a class or answer some questions, you or anybody's always welcome to reach out. But there are so many of us that want to see you be successful with this, that we're all there and willing to help and willing to jump in, but take advantage of all the free stuff. But it's got to start at the top. And I think once you integrate the tools that people are using, like OneNote, like we have whole class books and all of that into it. My daughter in her class, her teacher could stop by everybody's laptop virtually and see what they were doing in Teams, check, post all their grades, do everything there. It makes it so much easier for the students. And that's really the goal.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for coming on the show today. But in wrapping up, I would like you to share your top 3 Microsoft Teams feature now that can make an end user's day very productive.
My favorite 3 features. Okay.
Yes.
Number one, I love the fact that we can now pop out all the chats. I do that. I'll have 5 or 6 different chats, and you can put in GIFs and you can put in stickers and emojis and all this cool stuff to get your thoughts across. Number two, no matter what platform I work on, if I'm on Android, iOS, on an iPad, a Mac, it's exactly the same experience on every single platform. And I love that I can go out to lunch or go somewhere, and if somebody needs to reach me on Teams, it pops up right there. We even now have a walkie-talkie feature built into Teams so that you can do direct connect via VoIP and talk to somebody without even having to dial the phone. Zoom don't have
Wow.
that. But the walkie-talkie feature is great, especially when a teacher wants to talk to another teacher. They can just click, hey, what's going on? How are we doing this? And they can go back and forth without ever dialing a phone number. And I think number three, we're one of the most valuable companies on the planet, and there's a reason for it. Microsoft was huge back in the 90s, and then we lost our way, and we've come back, and we're now one of the top 3 companies in the world. And the reason it's there is because we listen to our customers. We're going to be around for a long time, but we want to hear what works and what doesn't work for you. If it's not working for you, tell us. You know what? This could be better. And we want to hear that, and we will make those changes and improvements because we are absolutely people first. It's not about Zoom, which wasn't around 5-6 years ago and now has come up, but they're having problems and they're behind in security and things like that. And not to badmouth them, they do a great product.
Yeah.
But we've been doing this for a long time, and we really, really listen to all of our customers. No person is too big or too small to be heard from us. And I encourage you, if you have something that will help to make our products better, share it with me, and I will share it with engineering all the way up to Jeff Teeper, and we will take a look at it because we want to hear from you. And I think that's what separates us and is one of those features that's really great. I think finally, God, what's my other favorite feature? Oh, I have a new one. There's a cool one now called SnoozeBot, where if somebody sends me a message, I can actually snooze it and say, remind me of this message in 30 minutes. That's really useful when I get a lot of messages coming in to be able to do that. And then I can go to my phone later and answer it back and do that. But I love that I can go on vacation or take a long lunch and turn off a lot of that stuff, but still if something's really important, I can be brought in on it for a minute, answer that, and then get back to my personal time. And being able to balance that without having to switch between 5 apps is really key. So I really appreciate the time today. This has been phenomenal.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for your time on the show with me today. So I really do appreciate taking the time to join me.
No, it is 9:30 at night here. It's been a long day, but this has been the highlight of my day and all the stuff that we have done. So I'll encourage folks to find me on Twitter. I'm at Stephen L. Rose with a PH on Twitter. You can reach out to me via LinkedIn. I'm always happy to chat. Check out our show at aka.ms/InsideMSTeams. And whatever we can do, however we can listen to, however we can make the product better, just tell us. Let us know. We want to know any of our products.
Yeah, sure. So here you have it. So you've heard from Stephen himself, walking us through some of those things that we need to know about Teams and some of the new announcement to Teams and even the new announcement generally coming from Microsoft at this just concluded Ignite. So remember, you can subscribe to the channel. So it's the Tech Talk Wednesday on YouTube, and you can have a rewatch of this particular episode or the previous episode also on YouTube. So here's where we're going to draw the curtain on today's episode of the Tech Talk. So let's continue to keep safe, and let's do this again another time. Thank you very much, and thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.